Somewhere in Syria near the Tomb of Envy, Seo Joo-Heon was seen carrying a large backpack with Irene beside him. Seo Joo-Heon also got a notification window if he was in the range of the Relic of Gluttony area, and he would be detected if he approached further. Seo Joo-Heon, who saw that, was annoyed that Jin Chae-won was here now. He also asked Irene to stop for a moment, because if they went further then they would be detected by an enemy. Seo Joo-Heon also explained that the area around the tomb had entered the range of Jin Chae-won's sensors, but Seo Joo-Heon had other plans now. Seo Joo-Heon will blow up the area underneath so that he can enter the tomb without having to pass through the entrance and be detected by Jin Chae-won. But Seo Joo-Heon must find a place where the aura of the tomb is weak while avoiding the detection range of Jin Chae-won. And the problem was to find a place where he could explode the relic and enter the tomb, because maybe if they were lucky then they would find it quickly, but if not then it would take a very long time. And they decided to return to their car first. And lucky for them, because someone had been monitoring using his sniper. It turned out that Seo had prepared with one of the soldiers there to shoot Seo Joo-Heon using a sniper, and Seo also told the soldier to immediately attack Seo Joo-Heon before he got away, but Seo asked the soldiers not to destroy the relic, because some of Seo Joo-Heon's relics belonged to Seo and all of them who had been associated with Seo Joo-Heon. At that time, one of his agents who infiltrated Pandora was caught, and he could not take back his important relic, because it belonged to Jin Chae-won. One of the snipers there started to aim his gun at Seo Joo-Heon's head, and as soon as the bullet went off, Seo Joo-Heon realized it, and he quickly turned around and used his shield relic. Seo Joo-Heon pulled Irene closer to him so that he could protect Irene. After that he used his shield relic to protect his body and Irene, and the sniper bullets made from the relic could not penetrate Seo Joo-Heon's shield. Although this relic did not have a high tier, but this relic could still be useful properly. Seo Joo-Heon also asked Irene to go to the big rock that was behind him. With that, Seo Joo-Heon then prepared his plan. First he would use a smoke bomb to give him time to act, and as soon as the smoke bomb was active the sniper could not see them because it was covered with thick smoke. All of them there panicked when Seo Joo-Heon managed to survive. After that Seo Joo-Heon used Nero's power to attack them and used the power of Nero's territory. After that a big earthquake occurred, making everyone panic, and a huge fire was in front of them. Immediately Nero's voice boomed there and used his power to teleport Seo Joo-Heon to the place where Seo was in an excessive way. Seo Joo-Heon even felt embarrassed now, but Nero didn't seem to mind that. Immediately all the soldiers there shot at Seo Joo-Heon, which of course he could withstand using his relic shield. Seo Joo-Heon then glanced at Seo sharply. Nero was very direct as the soldier attacked Seo Joo-Heon again, but Seo Joo-Heon said that he would take care of Seo and right after that a fire exploded on top of the building, burning everything there, and from behind the rising smoke, Seo Joo-Heon was seen smiling happily, and he approached Seo. Seo Joo-Heon was about to question Seo. First Seo Joo-Heon broached the topic of the China-Russia alliance and Jin Chae-won to Seo, because she was sure that Seo didn't really want to work for them. And Seo Joo-Heon began to reveal Seo's secrets about her family's mistakes that made Seo have to work with them. Seo was surprised and upset that Seo Joo-Heon knew all that. Everything was clear in Seo Joo-Heon's eyes that Seo had the burden of what her father and brother did. Although it was a little earlier than when Seo Joo-Heon met her last time, but she was sure that the debt was very large. Seo Joo-Heon asked how much debt Seo had to bear, because Seo Joo-Heon would pay it for Seo, and she asked Seo to work with her. And Seo Joo-Heon asked again how much Seo wanted, But hearing that Seo clenched her fist and got angry at Seo Joo-Heon, she also started using her power and relic. Seo did not trust Seo Joo-Heon, who knew about her weakness. Seo Joo-Heon, who saw Seo angry, tried to calm her down, but Seo did not want to listen to anything from Seo Joo-Heon. Seo immediately advanced and attacked Seo Joo-Heon just like that. But something luminous appeared from her bag and a notification window said that now Seo Joo-Heon can use the ability of the relic Munin's Tears because the condition has been fulfilled. Seo Joo-Heon was a little surprised, but she without hesitation tried her luck and used the relic on Seo. After that, Seo Joo-Heon saw the notification window targeting Lee Seo. What will happen to Seo and what exactly is the power of the relic? Seo's sword clashed with Seo Joo-Heon's relic shield, which caused an explosion of energy waves from both of them, but it didn't stop there. The next slash was given by Seo, who didn't want Seo Joo-Heon to have a chance to react. But still Seo Joo-Heon still relied on his relic shield to protect him from the slash made by Seo. The shield relic protested to Seo Joo-Heon to do something immediately. But Seo Joo-Heon was just waiting for his chance to try the power of the Munin's Tears relic. And when his chance came, he used his shield to push Seo to the ground, and quickly Seo Joo-Heon replaced his shield with the Munin's Tears relic, which he aimed directly at Seo. As soon as the relic splashed onto Seo, the relic began to work and made Seo scream in pain, after which Seo fell in one attack. Looking at Seo, who was in great pain, Seo Joo-Heon asked whether the relic was really working properly or not. Seo Joo-Heon only looked at Seo, who was in pain with a horrified look. Seo Joo-Heon also shouted and ran to Seo, who was holding her head. Slowly, the memory of her past life appeared, the memory of her being a member of the TBM. In that memory, Seo managed to see a lot of relics, and when her memory switched, she saw Seo Joo-Heon and Miller, who were fighting. She felt a familiar feeling in her. After that, she looked at Seo Joo-Heon, who looked back at her. She remembered Seo Joo-Heon as her boss, and she also remembered the special relationship she had with Seo Joo-Heon. Everything was clearly recorded from the success of her team and the suffering they all experienced, and her memory turned to the last spear they faced. Seo saw her friend's friend die and herself also die there. Seo opened her eyes and she remembered everything now. Seo suddenly got up and asked about Seo Joo-Heon by calling her as the boss like back then. But Seo still felt confused now. Her head hurt. Seo Joo-Heon, who heard Seo calling for her, was shocked as she realized that Seo memories had become one with the past. Seo Joo-Heon thought about what really happened, and he came to a conclusion where he found out if the power of Munin's Tears was to restore the memory of someone he knew, and the usage ration was the same as the number of members who were on Seo Joo-Heon's team in the past. Seo Joo-Heon, who saw this, smiled happily because he knew the purpose of the relic given to him, which was to evoke the memory of his teammate and avenge him. Seo Joo-Heon turned to Seo, who was still in pain. She tried to call out her name, and it worked. Seo, who saw Seo Joo-Heon in front of her, became happy and hugged Seo Joo-Heon. Seo Joo-Heon also asked how Seo was doing, but Seo was still scared as she remembered the events in her past. But Seo Joo-Heon calmed Seo and asked her to tell her what she remembered. Seo also said that Ilya was the first person to die, and she also remembered the time when Seo Joo-Heon saved them and her body was cut in half. But in the end, Seo also remembered that she also died. Seo Joo-Heon calmed down Seo, who was still sad, and asked her to tell how she first met Seo Joo-Heon. Seo remembered that Seo Joo-Heon praised her when she first entered the team of 13. She also remembered Seo Joo-Heon who brought Santa cookies for all of them to eat. Seo Joo-Heon also remembered that, and she felt like she was nostalgic. When Seo Joo-Heon asked for other memories, Seo instead talked about the embarrassing things done by Yoo-Ji-ha, and it managed to make Seo Joo-Heon laugh. Seo Joo-Heon was touched when he knew that Seol's memories were the same as what he remembered, and even Seo remembered things he had forgotten. Seo Joo-Heon was even more convinced that this was not an illusion that was planted in Seol's head. Seo asked for more explanation about what happened, and Seo Joo-Heon explained that Seo died at that time, and right when Seo Joo-Heon was about to die, a relic suddenly came and reversed time, and revived everything. Seo who heard the explanation, looked at the date on her cell phone, and sure enough, if they all went back in time. Seo Joo-Heon also said that normally they didn't know each other now, but the future had changed, and that made anything possible. Seo Joo-Heon also showed the relic that had returned Seol's memory. Seo Joo-Heon also said that everything had happened and he didn't even know if he could restore Seol's memory using the relic. Seo Joo-Heon also said that he didn't want to force Seo to remain loyal to him, because Seo Joo-Heon wanted Seo to live by her own will, and he only asked that Seo not get in his way and threatened Seo. But Seo Joo-Heon's words made Seo smile and touched her finger to Seo Joo-Heon's nose. Seo asked Seo Joo-Heon to be honest with her, as she took back Seo Joo-Heon's words that she would pay her debts and make Seo work with her. But Seo Joo-Heon only said that she didn't want Jin Chae-won to benefit a lot from using Seo. And Seo also asked back then if Seo Joo-Heon wanted Seo to betray Jin Chae-won now, and Seo agreed with Seo Joo-Heon. She would start following Seo Joo-Heon now that she had gotten her memory back. Seo Joo-Heon smiled happily, and she promised to pay all of Seol's debts after they returned. Meanwhile, with Nero and the soldier he fought against, Nero saw Seo Joo-Heon and Seo walking together and sneered at the two of them for making up. Seo Joo-Heon also asked what Nero had done to the soldier, and he only said that the soldier was only made to please his satisfaction. Nero also asked about Seo, and Seo Joo-Heon introduced Seo as one of his colleagues now. Nero did not understand what exactly happened, but he did not ask further. Seo also asked what Seo Joo-Heon would do now. Like the previous plan, Seo Joo-Heon said if she wanted to save someone in the tomb. Seo, who was curious, also asked who Seo Joo-Heon would save in the tomb. And when Seo Joo-Heon said someone they knew very well, Seo was surprised when she found out that it was Yoo-Ji-ha who would be saved by Seo Joo-Heon in the tomb, and saw Yoo-Ji-ha who was hiding from the relics pursuit there. Will the two of them succeed in saving Yoo-Ji-ha? Will Seo Joo-Heon use Munin's tears on the other team members? Seo Joo-Heon introduced Seo as one of his current team members to Irene, and Seo Joo-Heon also introduced Irene as one of the people who helped him very often. Seo looked surprised when she heard that the person in front of her was Irene Holton. Seo, who knew Irene as the king of failure in the past, was surprised when she heard that Seo Joo-Heon was working with her. Seo Joo-Heon knew that Seo had bad memories of Irene in the past that had caused a lot of chaos. but Seo Joo-Heon explained that the current Irene was different from the Irene that Seo was referring to, and the debate managed to make Irene confused now. Irene couldn't understand the two people arguing in front of her because they were speaking in Korean, but Irene could sense that Seo hated her, and so did Irene. Irene then approached Seo Joo-Heon and whispered about Seo who was previously an enemy, but Seo Joo-Heon calmed Irene if now they could trust Seo because she had her own reasons for working with the enemy. Seo Joo-Heon then took over the leadership and asked them to follow him and save Yoo-Ji-ha, who was still trapped there. Seen a car driven by Seo Joo-Heon along with Irene and Seo in it. Irene seemed to confirm to Seo Joo-Heon if Yoo-Ji-ha was really okay, but Seo Joo-Heon asked Irene not to worry about Yoo-Ji-ha because some time ago Yoo-Ji-ha used the relic communication network to continue communicating with Seo Joo-Heon, and even Yoo-Ji-ha had provided information that Seo Joo-Heon found very useful, starting from the place and who the owner of the tomb was. The owner of the tomb was the relic Salieri. Antonio Salieri, a musician from Italy. Salieri was very talented because he was the one who taught other talented musicians such as Beethoven, Schubert, and others. But Salieri was more famous for his enmity with another talented musician, Mozart. Although it was just a baseless rumor, but the rumor became famous and made him featured in various films and even played in dramas. And a sentence about Salieri syndrome appeared, and Seo Joo-Heon thought that if the owner of the Tomb of Envy was Salieri, he would definitely feel unfair. Meanwhile, Nero, who always reads the progress of the relic communication network, said that there was a new writing there. Seo Joo-Heon also asked Nero to tell him what happened in there. Nero also said that suddenly there were invisible soldiers, and Yoo-Ji-ha seemed to be caught by them. Seo Joo-Heon, who heard that, became a little worried, as well as Irene, who was worried after hearing what Nero said about Yoo-Ji-ha, and Seo Joo-Heon accelerated the speed of his vehicle. While on the other hand, it was seen Yoo-Ji-ha who was being chased by a horde of soldiers who looked like ghosts. Yoo-Ji-ha did not know why the ghosts could appear when Salieri could only attack using his musical instrument. Yoo-Ji-ha, who felt this strangeness, he assumed if there were other relics that inhabited this Tomb of Envy besides Salieri. And right after that, the rope relic tied the body of Yoo-Ji-ha and pulled it quickly so that they wouldn't be caught by the soldiers. And sure enough, the rope relic moved very quickly and entered a large room that looked empty. The rope relic hit Yoo-Ji-ha, who traveled alone without him. But Yoo-Ji-ha brushed off the rope relic, and the angry rope relic strangled Yoo-Ji-ha's neck firmly. The sound of the two of them was heard all the way out of the room and attracted the attention of the soldiers before. Yoo-Ji-ha was unhappy because the rope relic attacked him continuously without giving him a chance to fight back, because it was an unfair fight because Yoo-Ji-ha had to fight the relic. But hearing this, the rope relic misunderstood and thought that he could turn into a human, and because of the noise they made, the soldiers managed to find them and arrest Yoo-Ji-ha on the spot. But the rope relic who tried to protect him could not move because there were so many of them. After that, Salieri came towards them, making Yoo-Ji-ha surprised and scared. Yoo-Ji-ha did not accept it because Salieri even attacked him, who had no intention of entering this tomb. But Salieri said that he would kill someone more talented than him. But Yoo-Ji-ha tried to calm him down by giving him praise. Unfortunately, Salieri didn't listen to what Yoo-Ji-ha said and started to sound his instrument loudly. But after a while, it was seen that the roof wall had cracked and immediately an explosion was created there. The roof of the room collapsed, but fortunately Yoo-Ji-ha survived the ruins. When Yoo Ji-ha tried to open his eyes, he saw a blinding light along with two silhouette figures talking to him. After being able to see well, Yoo Ji-ha was very happy and moved when he saw Seo Joo-Heon coming for him. Seo Joo-Heon also gave earplugs to Seo-ah and asked her to wear them because Saliri would attack them using sound. After that, Saliri seemed angry because Seo Joo-Heon destroyed her room, but Seo Joo-Heon only smiled in response to Saliri. Saliri also sounded her instrument so loudly that it even made them have to endure a little pain in their ears. Seo-ah was asked by Seo Joo-Heon to save Yoo Ji-ha. Seo Joo-Heon also took out her relic and started making fire with the relic she had. Immediately, the fire attacked Saliri. A huge explosion accompanied by flames occurred, and the attack succeeded in making Saliri burn. Seeing the monster that was about to attack Seo Joo-Heon, Seo-ah quickly cut down the monster and defeated it. Not finished there, Seo-ah also asked Gildal to chase the other monsters. Gildal attacked with his fire directly at the monsters. Meanwhile, Yoo Ji-ha, who was still lying on the floor, was confused when he saw Seo-ah in front of him helping Seo Joo-Heon. While Seo-ah, who saw Yoo Ji-ha did not know what was about him, was surprised, and he felt that Yoo Ji-ha was now more stupid than before. Seo-ah also realized that Yoo Ji-ha had not regained his memory. Seo-ah moved to help Yoo Ji-ha. But seeing Yoo Ji-ha, who did not believe her, Seo-ah asked Yoo Ji-ha to be quiet and not complicate his situation. Meanwhile, Yoo Ji-ha was still confused because Seo-ah suddenly helped him. Back with Seo Joo-Heon, who was still dealing with Saliri there. Slowly, he saw a bright light penetrating the sky of the room and making all the wounds and flames that injured Saliri healed instantly. Seo Joo-Heon, who realized the arrival of the second relic like what was conveyed by Yoo Ji-ha before, began to be alert. And from the sky, a chessboard appeared above Saliri's body. The chessboard relic seemed to be talking to Seo Joo-Heon angrily because he had disturbed his servant. Seo Joo-Heon, who saw it, realized that the chess relic was the one who resurrected the soldiers of the previous army. Seo-ah came, and she gave the Van Gogh given by Yoo Ji-ha to Seo Joo-Heon and said that her relic was inside. Hearing that, Seo Joo-Heon without hesitation took her sword relic from inside the Van Gogh and prepared to fight them. Seo Joo-Heon thanked Seo-ah, and now it was Seo Joo-Heon's turn to attack. He came face to face with the two relics and bravely, Seo Joo-Heon attacked them both. Did Seo Joo-Heon manage to defeat them? Now we see Seo Joo-Heon and Seo-ah, who are facing Saliri and the chess relic and his soldiers, but before they could attack one of the chess pieces, there checked the body of Seo Joo-Heon with a green light. And the chess relic was upset because Seo Joo-Heon turned out to be not a person who had talent in the arts, and the chess relic said that he would kill Seo Joo-Heon. But Seo Joo-Heon, who heard that, just smiled. After that, the chess relic gave more power to Saliri so that he could kill Seo Joo-Heon and Seo-ah. Saliri, who was given that power, felt that his body was now filled with great power, and with that he called his army to surround Seo Joo-Heon and Seo-ah. Seo Joo-Heon looked at them with disgust. After that, Saliri shouted and began to lead his orchestra. And with that, all the soldiers there, who turned out to be members of the orchestra, played their instruments according to the direction of the maestro Saliri. At that moment, a wave of sound full of power attacked Seo Joo-Heon, who used a relic shield to try to withstand their attacks, but it seemed that the relic did not last long because of the strong attacks generated from the instrumentalists there. Saliri, who saw Seo Joo-Heon using his shield to ward off his attacks, became angry and increased his strength. Seo Joo-Heon still withstood the strong attack, and at that moment she took out the Code of Hammurabi behind her. and as Seo Joo-Heon recited the spell code of Hammurabi shone brightly and reversed all the sound waves and attacks made by Saliri back to her. Saliri was also seen still withstanding her own attack, but Seo Joo-Heon did not give him time to react, and slashed at Saliri by cutting off his arm, and after his arm was cut off, Saliri became even angrier at Seo Joo-Heon. But Seo Joo-Heon, who heard Saliri's anger, just smiled happily and provoked Saliri by calling him untalented and telling him to retire as a musician. Seo Joo-Heon, who saw that Saliri was getting angry, felt that her plan this time would succeed, because from the beginning the relic was not Saliri, but was made because of the rumors about Saliri that were circulating, and that's why her emotions were unstable because of her resentment. Seo Joo-Heon would use the same method she did to Nero, who was now seen in the car with Irene. Seo Joo-Heon faced Saliri directly, while Gildal and Seol-ah faced the soldiers who tried to attack her. Seo Joo-Heon continued to say that she liked music and she knew some famous musicians' names, but when Seo Joo-Heon mentioned that Mozart was better than Saliri, the envy that was in Saliri's heart peaked, and it made her very angry at Seo Joo-Heon because she mentioned someone's name that she should never mention. When Seo Joo-Heon looked up, she was surprised when she saw a piano just falling towards her. But with quick reflexes, she avoided the piano that would fall on her. Not only that, Saliri again attacked Seo Joo-Heon by dropping various musical instruments towards Seo Joo-Heon, but Seo Joo-Heon managed to avoid everything and ran to make a distance while he was still making fun of Saliri, which made Saliri even more annoyed. After Seo Joo-Heon met with Seol-ah, they began to divide their duties, and after agreeing to their respective parts, Seo Joo-Heon turned back to attack Saliri while Seol-ah was still stopping the attack of the soldiers. Seo Joo-Heon moved to attack, but Saliri, who had been consumed by his pride, attacked Seo Joo-Heon angrily. Seo Joo-Heon jumped high up and prepared to slash Saliri. As Saliri tried to attack Seo Joo-Heon, Seo Joo-Heon, who was faster, managed to give Saliri a strong slash and made him fall instantly. After seeing Saliri, who had lost, the chess relic was angry and did not accept that Seo Joo-Heon could successfully defeat him. When Seo Joo-Heon talked to the chess relic, he felt an earthquake made because the relic of gluttony was angry. Seo Joo-Heon snorted in annoyance at the notification window. Seol-ah shouted to Seo Joo-Heon because the tomb began to collapse. Seo Joo-Heon, who heard that, invited Seol-ah to get out of the tomb before things got worse, but it seemed they were too late because a power had dominated the tomb, even making Saliri and the chess relic panic. Immediately a power attacked them both and absorbed their power. But not only that, several notification windows appeared and said that the relic of gluttony had taken over the tomb and made it even more dangerous. Slowly, the relic belonging to Seo Joo-Heon was also absorbed by its power. Seo Joo-Heon was shocked to see his relic whose power was forcibly taken like that. Seo Joo-Heon saw that the relics lost their strength and both of them could not move their bodies. After that, a huge power began to attack the minds of the two of them with a huge and deep hatred. Seo Joo-Heon felt dizzy in his head as he felt so much power attacking him, but fortunately he was able to withstand it with the immunity he had. And it was things like this that made this tomb very difficult to solve, because the team members would be forced to kill each other. And just as Seo Joo-Heon assumed, he saw Seol-ah, who was pointing a sword at him. Seo Joo-Heon tried to calm down Seol-ah, who had been completely controlled and was about to kill Seo Joo-Heon, but it didn't seem to work because Seol-ah had been completely controlled by his anger. When Seo Joo-Heon tried to find the relic in her bag, all the relics there had also been consumed by their envy, making Seo Joo-Heon surprised. Seo Joo-Heon then turned to face Seol-ah, who was trying to attack her. The situation was getting dangerous for her. Seo Joo-Heon felt that she was in big trouble when Seol-ah ran to attack her with a sword in her hand. Will Seo Joo-Heon be safe from the tomb? Whose power has made them all like that? Along with Yoo Ji-ha now trapped in the ruins, Yoo Ji-ha seemed to be trying to save himself when Seo Joo-Heon came to save him, but the ruins above him did not stop falling, making the buried Yoo Ji-ha doubt himself who was still alive because his tomb stopped collapsing. Yoo Ji-ha checked his body to make sure that he was still alive. But when he wanted to breathe a sigh of relief, he heard the voice of Seo Joo-Heon, who tried to calm Seo-Ah-who. Yoo Ji-ha turned to them, and there he saw Seo-Ah trying to attack Seo Joo-Heon, who could only avoid all his attacks. But a voice from the relic sounded annoyed because he saw Seo Joo-Heon, who was not affected by the power of this tomb. The relic that looked like a lantern released a thick black mist that quickly enveloped the surroundings. Seo Joo-Heon, who saw that, realized that the relic was the source of the power of the relic of gluttony in this room. Seo Joo-Heon also ran quickly towards the relic. But it didn't seem to happen because Seo Joo-Heon, who was now unable to move his body due to the increasing intensity of the power released by the tomb. Seo Joo-Heon could not move his body at all at the moment. After a while in such a state, Seo Joo-Heon felt his hand moving on its own because it was affected by the power of this tomb, and in his hand that moved on its own. A relic sword that he used to use now appeared about to cut his own neck. But with a hand that Seo Joo-Heon can still control, he can hold it. The blade of the sword is now right on his neck, and when Seo Joo-Heon surrendered, he saw Seo-Ah beside him in a state not much different from him, with the blade of the sword on his neck. And when the sword was about to cut her neck, Yoo Ji-ha came casually and stopped Seo Joo-Heon's hand that was about to cut her own neck. After successfully separating the sword from her neck, Yoo Ji-ha came to Seo-Ah casually and stopped Seo-Ah's sword. Seo Joo-Heon did not understand why Yoo Ji-ha was not affected by the power of the relic. Yoo Ji-ha, who did not know the situation, also asked why the two of them wanted to kill themselves, but Seo Joo-Heon, who could not even move his mouth, could not speak, and gave a code to Yoo Ji-ha through his eyes. Yoo Ji-ha, who understood the code, looked in the same direction as Seo Joo-Heon, and there he saw something that continuously emitted thick smoke. Even the relic itself did not understand why Yoo Ji-ha did not receive the effect, and when the relic increased its power, Yoo Ji-ha, who was near the relic, closed his eyes because of the thick fog that came out very much. But Yoo Ji-ha was still not affected, and annoyed he hit the relic, making it fall, and Yoo Ji-ha stepped on the relic. They were all confused why Yoo Ji-ha was not affected by that power. After Yoo Ji-ha managed to defeat the relic, Seo Joo-Heon and Seo-Ah were free from the power that was holding them. Seo Joo-Heon turned his attention to Seo-Ah, who almost fell on the floor, and quickly Seo Joo-Heon helped Seo-Ah to stand up and took her out. But before Seo Joo-Heon went out, he saw the relic that had this ROM and took it with him. Seo Joo-Heon also told Yoo Ji-ha to get out of here before something worse happens, and Yoo Ji-ha agreed with that. Yoo Ji-ha carried his bag while Seo Joo-Heon was still helping Seo-Ah to get out of this tomb, and the relic suddenly made a sound, and he knew why Yoo Ji-ha was not affected. It seems that Yoo Ji-ha is not affected because he has no sense of envy for himself. Seo Joo-Heon, who heard that, also realized that the reason why Yoo Ji-ha was not affected was because he had no pride for himself. Seo Joo-Heon also called Yoo Ji-ha to speed up his pace. But a blue light came out from the bag held by Yoo Ji-ha, and a relic came out and flew from the bag. Seo Joo-Heon was unable to react, and she just stared vigilantly at the relic that was taken from her. But before the relic could go any further, Seo Joo-Heon saw something. He saw that the relic was caught by something there. The relic tried to free himself from the something that caught him, but it didn't seem to work after they heard the relic scream. The rope relic appeared from the same direction as the relic left, and he came to Seo Joo-Heon happily. Seo Joo-Heon, who saw the rope relic returning to him, became very happy. Seo Joo-Heon could also see that the rope relic was carrying something with him now. The relic gave a relic that had previously tried to escape. The relic was called Mnemosyne's memory coin. The relic was taken by Seo Joo-Heon when he gathered the members of Pandora in the Golden Palace at that time. Mnemosyne is a goddess of memory from Greek mythology. This relic is a relic with the god tier and is a type with very strong memory power. In the past, this relic was owned by Jin Chai-won, and currently the relic is also owned by him. But Seo Joo-Heon found it strange why Jin Chai-won's relic was in the hands of Pandora when Seo Joo-Heon gathered them. Seo Joo-Heon knew that Jin Chai-won had been after this relic from the beginning. The woman had known that this relic would appear in the tomb, so she was after her. Seo confirmed Seo Joo-Heon's assumption, and she said that Jin Chai-won ordered her to kill Seo Joo-Heon and take back her relic that was in Seo Joo-Heon's hands. Yoo Ji-ha seemed confused by a woman named Jin Chai-won whom he did not know. Seo Joo-Heon briefly explained that the woman was very strong and very troublesome. The relic was still rebelling when he was in the hands of Seo Joo-Heon, asking him to let go, but Seo Joo-Heon grasped him even more firmly and he intended to destroy the relic so that he could get out of this tomb. After channeling his power, the relic was in even more pain as Seo Joo-Heon began to activate his power to destroy this tomb. Yoo Ji-ha stopped Seo Joo-Heon, who wanted to destroy the relic with such a god tier. But Seo Joo-Heon said that if he kept this relic, then everything would become troublesome because Jin Chai-won would continue to hunt him down. Afterwards, Seo Joo-Heon activated his power and it made the relic beg Seo Joo-Heon to stop him. But unfortunately Seo Joo-Heon did not hear the relic's plea and detonated it, causing a huge explosion and destroying the tomb and giving him access to the exit. Will Seo Joo-Heon make it out of there with so many soldiers surrounding the tomb? And what will Jin Chai-won do when she finds out the relic has been destroyed? A huge explosion was created from the tomb. Irene, who saw it from the car, became a little worried if something happened to Seo Joo-Heon. And after seeing that, Irene drove her car to save Seo Joo-Heon. There was a relic voice that seemed to not believe that a human could destroy their tomb in such a way. The three of them came out of the smoke, and it seemed that the relic of gluttony was not here and they had to be careful not to enter its detection area. Yoo Ji-ha, who heard the relic's voice, was surprised when he could hear that the relic could speak to them even though it was not there. Seo Joo-Heon also explained that the relic was not a normal relic. Hearing that, Yoo Ji-ha became horrified and scared. The three of them decided to leave the tomb, but before they had time to run away, they saw someone with his car approaching them. Everyone became surprised, but after they saw Irene there, they became happy and got into the car. The car drove away from the location of the tomb, and Seo Joo-Heon told Irene how they saved Yoo Ji-ha and took the relic from the tomb. Seo Joo-Heon took out the relic he got from the tomb, the relic composer Salieri's music book, and a fork relic in the other hand. The fork relic was the embodiment of the previous chess relic, a fork from Catherine de' Medici's hometown. Catherine de' Medici was a very famous lady of the Medici family, who became the Queen of France. At that time, a problem between Catholics and Protestants was very intense, so Catherine tried to strengthen her power by mediating between the two camps. And now there is controversy after she did what she wanted. Catherine was labeled as a cunning woman and blamed for the massacre of thousands of Protestants during her reign, but Seo Joo-Heon still didn't understand why she was in the tomb. Maybe it was because her husband was in love with an older woman and she became jealous because she was ignored by her husband. Irene asked what power the relic had, but it seemed that Seo Joo-Heon didn't know its power before she made a contract with the relic. Yoo-Ji-ha also added that if Suliri attacked using the sound of her musical instrument, Seo Joo-Heon assumed that the relic Catherine had the ability to strengthen her team or audience because that was what she did to Suliri before. But as far as their car went, they saw several cars coming towards them from the front. After they saw the logo of one of the TV broadcasts there, Seo Joo-Heon was sure that the car came to do an interview and cover the news of the tomb. Seeing the car, Seo Joo-Heon asked Irene to turn the car around because she would say that this tomb belonged to Seo Joo-Heon. Irene was a little surprised because Seo Joo-Heon was acting unusual, but she still followed Seo Joo-Heon's request. But it turned out that Seo Joo-Heon did this for Yoo-Ji-ha, which made her confused. But Seo Joo-Heon said that they had to solve the problem with Richard. Yoo-Ji-ha was surprised why Seo Joo-Heon did all this suddenly, and it turned out that Seo Joo-Heon did this because Richard was the one who kidnapped Yoo-Ji-ha and put him in the tomb. Yoo-Ji-ha only found out about it because he thought that the person who put him in was Jin Chai-won. But because Seo Joo-Heon got a threatening call from Richard, he was very sure that Richard was the one who did it. Seo Joo-Heon will also help Yoo-Ji-ha restore his good name by exposing all his crimes because he took Yoo-Ji-ha's artwork. But it seems that Yoo-Ji-ha looks scared of what Seo Joo-Heon will do. Seo Joo-Heon also reminds him of his fight with Richard at the party. Even so, nothing changed from that incident. But Seo Joo-Heon was sure that this time there would be many changes because she herself would help to plan it. Seo-Ah, who saw the kindness of Seo Joo-Heon, who wanted to help Yoo-Ji-ha, smiled happily. Seo Joo-Heon knew that the reason why Yoo-Ji-ha was not affected by the power of the relic was because he had no pride in himself, and it was possible because after his art style was stolen by Richard, Yoo-Ji-ha had also been labeled as a criminal. Although Yoo-Ji-ha became one of his subordinates, he was also forced to work hard and was always brought by Seo Joo-Heon to the tomb. At that time, Seo Joo-Heon made a promise to restore the good name of Yoo-Ji-ha, and now Seo Joo-Heon felt the time was right to fulfill his promise. Meanwhile, at a television station, Richard was seen being interviewed by one of the news anchors there. The reporter began to ask about the achievements made by Richard at the tomb. They continued to talk about things around the tomb and discussed about the relic that would emerge from the tomb. But a shout was heard and it seemed that there was a big problem. The person who shouted was scolded by someone there, but the person said that the tomb they were discussing had exploded and there was a big hole there. And he also said that the person who did it appeared on the news. Seo Joo-Heon and Yoo-Ji-ha were seen talking on camera to Richard. Seo Joo-Heon also showed Richard if he had taken the relic from the tomb. Richard, who saw it, was surprised and worried because Seo Joo-Heon had finished the tomb. Seo Joo-Heon also said a crime where Richard kidnapped Yoo-Ji-ha and made him enter the tomb. Seo Joo-Heon again blamed Richard for venturing deep into the tomb just to kidnap Yoo-Ji-ha. Seo Joo-Heon also mentioned the name of someone who could do that, and that person was named Francisco. Seo Joo-Heon knew this because he appeared when Richard's base camp was in the news. Seo Joo-Heon continued his words, but it seemed that the reporter who was with him doubted the truth. But Seo Joo-Heon assured that everything he said was the truth. This had happened in his past, but this was planned by Joshua along with Francisco's power. Seo Joo-Heon wondered if Joshua was now working for Richard, but Seo Joo-Heon didn't think much about it. Seo Joo-Heon also confirmed his words and he prepared a place where Yoo-Ji-ha would give his confession. Although Yoo-Ji-ha was embarrassed to speak in front of the camera, but he ventured and confessed that Richard had stolen his painting style and said that Richard's world-famous work was stolen from Yoo-Ji-ha. Seo Joo-Heon also added another thing to make Richard even more cornered. Hearing the things said by Seo Joo-Heon and Yoo-Ji-ha, The reporter recalled that there used to be such scandals from Richard, and from the other side, Seo Joo-Heon smiled at Richard and asked him to explain the truth in front of the camera now. Will Richard admit all his mistakes? What will Seo Joo-Heon do? Still with Seo Joo-Heon, who continued to corner Richard, who could not explain to him. Richard, who heard that, became unacceptable, and he accused if Seo Joo-Heon had lied to everyone. The reporter also wanted an explanation from Richard, who said if what was said by Yoo Ji-ha and Seo Joo-Heon was a lie, and because they were doing a live broadcast now, the reporter wanted Richard to explain to the camera there. Richard felt cornered now because the reporter also wanted him to explain, and if he didn't say anything to the camera now, then he would be finished there and labeled as a thief of other people's work, while Richard also couldn't say something stupid as an explanation. Richard also began to explain about what he did, starting from the tomb that had been conquered by Seo Joo-Heon. Richard did not mind that because he was sure that later there would be another opportunity for him to conquer one of the tombs from the 7 great tombs. Richard also changed the topic to plagiarism that he did with the painting style of Yoo Ji-ha. Richard said that the news was not true at all, because it was actually Yoo Ji-ha who had plagiarized his artwork. Meanwhile, elsewhere in a motel, Yoo Ji-ha was seen wearing something. Seo Joo-Heon took out a potion in his hand. Seo Joo-Heon said that everything he gave to Yoo Ji-ha now was a relic to protect himself. Seo Joo-Heon was about to give the potion, but Yoo Ji-ha never took it from her hand and made her upset. But Yoo Ji-ha was still confused, and she didn't want to do it so soon and relax first. Seo Joo-Heon agreed to it, but she asked Yoo Ji-ha to make a painting for them to run away later. After everything was done, they both returned to the hotel, and as usual, Yoo Ji-ha repaired the Suliri and Catherine relics to make a contract with Seo Joo-Heon and Yoo Ji-ha. But Yoo Ji-ha could not understand why Seo Joo-Heon wanted him to use all the relics. And it seemed that Yoo Ji-ha could deduce something if Seo Joo-Heon did this in case Yoo Ji-ha was kidnapped again. And Seo Joo-Heon confirmed it because they might kidnap Yoo Ji-ha later. And since they had provoked Richard, then he should be more careful. But Seo Joo-Heon calmed Yoo Ji-ha, who was panicking in fear because she would save him again if Yoo Ji-ha was kidnapped. Even so, Seo Joo-Heon asked Yoo Ji-ha to always be careful if at any time he would be kidnapped again. After saying all that, Seo Joo-Heon used the potion relic to Yoo Ji-ha. Even though Yoo Ji-ha protested, but Seo Joo-Heon would still tell Yoo Ji-ha to keep using all the relics before everything was finished. Yoo Ji-ha was getting annoyed and he protested because all the relics were only troublesome for him. But Seo Joo-Heon did not want to listen to the protests of Yoo Ji-ha. Not only that, Seo Joo-Heon also started looking for relic weapons in case Yoo Ji-ha was involved in a fight. Yoo Ji-ha inevitably took all the relics that Seo Joo-Heon gave him while he was still looking at Seo Joo-Heon, who was trying to find other relics in his collection, and Seo Joo-Heon threw the Suliri relic to Yoo Ji-ha because he was now under contract with Suliri. And it was just like what Seo Joo-Heon predicted. An earthquake occurred, and seeing that Seo Joo-Heon was ready for it, Seo Joo-Heon hugged Yoo Ji-ha strangely, and the two of them slowly glowed and disappeared. Meanwhile, in another place that looked like a warehouse, a lot of people had gathered with Francisco, who brought up Yoo Ji-ha and Seo Joo-Heon with his power. Francisco was seen still using his power to summon Yoo Ji-ha, and Richard, who was there, would also make sure that this time he would kill Yoo Ji-ha with his own hands. After which a light shone and appeared Yoo Ji-ha and Seo Joo-Heon there calmly. While Richard, who saw Seo Joo-Heon also teleported in surprise, Seo Joo-Heon also glanced at Richard, and Richard trembled in fear when he saw Seo Joo-Heon standing there looking at him, and with one order Richard ordered his subordinates to attack Seo Joo-Heon. But Seo Joo-Heon only deflected all the bullets that attacked him using the shield. Seo Joo-Heon also told Yoo Ji-ha to attack while he held back their bullets. Yoo Ji-ha was surprised when he was ordered to attack, but Seo Joo-Heon reassured Yoo Ji-ha and pointed to the Francisco Fig who had kidnapped him. But it seemed that the shield did not last long and they both became surrounded by Richard's subordinates. Yoo Ji-ha became afraid and frantically asked for help from one of the relics he was holding. Seo Joo-Heon, who saw a light shining from Yoo Ji-ha's body, was distracted. And immediately a thick smoke emanated accompanied by an unpleasant odor. Besides that, there were several arrows that slid and attacked Richard's subordinates. But above all, there was Salieri, who played his musical instrument, making everyone there have to protect their ears. And seeing Yoo Ji-ha, who fainted because he had used many relics simultaneously, Seo Joo-Heon moved to find the painting because they had to escape from here as soon as possible before things got worse. After Seo Joo-Heon found the painting, all he had to do was draw one last line on the painting. Meanwhile, on Richard's side, Francisco was seen, who had passed out, and Richard, who was still trying to withstand the attack from Salieri. But before Richard could move, Seo Joo-Heon had finished his drawing and smiled happily at Richard. The painting shone and transported Seo Joo-Heon and Yoo Ji-ha back to their inn, while Richard, who saw Seo Joo-Heon slowly disappearing, became even more furious and annoyed with them. Richard shouted and he would promise to kill Seo Joo-Heon. Meanwhile, Seo Joo-Heon and Yoo Ji-ha were back at their previous inn with Yoo Ji-ha still unconscious. Seo Joo-Heon was satisfied that he managed to escape from there together with Yoo Ji-ha. And the next day, when Seo Joo-Heon was watching the news, she saw Francisco being carried to the ambulance and was about to be taken to the hospital because Salieri kept attacking him. Richard was also seen trying hard to cover up the news and all these events from the media. It was clear that Richard was afraid that a new scandal would arise because of this incident. Seo Joo-Heon, who saw it, smiled happily. What will Seo Joo-Heon do next?